May your heart always be filled with peace. May your days flow with tenderness and your nights be soothed by hope. Even in the stormiest times or darkest moments, may you always find light and strength within yourself. May love surround you always, and happiness always find its way back to you. Now, get ready to dive into a journey where buried emotions, calculated decisions, and a heart once thought incapable of love slowly begin to unravel in the face of something stronger. A marriage signed not for love, but for a child. Yet fate has its own way of turning everything upside down, and from there, everything begins to change. Ethan Cole stood silently before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his luxurious Manhattan penthouse. Below him stretched the glittering lights of a city he had conquered, a kingdom he built from nothing. As the founder and CEO of a world-leading AI corporation, Ethan was renowned not only for his genius, but for his cold, ruthless approach to business. He had endured a childhood marked by loss. His parents died in a car accident when he was just 10, leaving him alone in the world. No family, no warmth, no one to teach him love. Ethan learned to survive through logic, discipline, and the promise to never let emotions rule him. To him, love was a weakness, an illusion that left people broken. But there was one thing power and wealth could not buy: an heir, a child to carry the Cole name, to continue the legacy he had built with tireless sacrifice. Ethan didn't want love. He didn't believe in real marriage. What he needed was a clean, legal solution, a woman who would agree to carry his child in exchange for financial security, no strings, no feelings. So he summoned his legal team and gave a single command: find someone suitable, young, healthy, discreet, and most importantly, willing to sign a contract. To Ethan, this was just another business deal, a biological project with long-term strategy. But what he didn't know was that this very project would change everything. Maya Bennett sat curled up at her rickety desk inside a cramped apartment tucked deep in Brooklyn. The soft glow of a desk lamp lit the half-finished illustrations she was desperately trying to complete before the weekend deadline. As a freelance illustrator, Maya's income was unpredictable, barely enough to scrape by. After her father racked up massive debts from failed investments and vanished, Maya became the sole provider. She worked constantly while taking care of her younger brother, who was still in school. Her life was a blur of sleepless nights, overdue bills, and meager meals. But what kept her going was the love she had for her family, and a fragile hope that somehow things would get better. So, when a sharply dressed man knocked on her door and introduced himself as the legal representative of Ethan Cole, Maya was stunned. He presented her with a bizarre proposal: a legal contract marriage, no emotional ties. If she agreed to carry a child for a man she had never met, she would receive $20 million. Maya thought it was a joke, but when she realized the man behind the offer was Ethan Cole, one of the most reclusive and powerful billionaires in the country, she was speechless. At first, she refused. Her pride screamed in protest. But then, she thought of her brother, of the eviction notice on their door, of the quiet tears she saw in her mother's eyes each night. She didn't have a choice. A few days later, Maya walked into the magnificent building where Ethan Cole lived, her heart pounding, her fingers trembling. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her soft curls tied neatly, and her eyes held both fear and fierce resolve. She had no idea that stepping into that penthouse would change her life forever. The automatic glass doors slid open as Maya stepped into Ethan Cole's expansive penthouse. Soft, ambient lighting glowed off the polished marble floors, and minimalist artwork lined the hallway. Silent, cold, reflecting the owner's detached taste. There was no music, no welcoming voice, just a man standing at the far window, his back turned, staring out at the glittering city below. Ethan Cole turned when he heard her footsteps. His steel-gray eyes were sharp, unreadable, as if they could cut through anything in front of them. He didn't greet her, didn't smile. He simply said, "I'm offering you $20 million to carry my child. No attachments, no emotions. It's a clean deal." Maya froze. She glanced around. The exquisite furniture, the endless glass windows framing the breathtaking skyline, all of it foreign to her world. but beneath the luxury lay a chill that tightened in her chest. Ethan didn't ask why she was here, didn't care about her past. He wanted one thing: a child. Everything else was irrelevant. Maya wanted to say no. Her pride screamed inside her, but then her brother's hollow cheeks and her mother's tired eyes filled her mind. She knew she had no other choice. She lifted her gaze, voice trembling. "All right, I'll do it." A flicker of surprise flashed through Ethan's eyes, brief and then gone. He turned away, nodding coolly. "We'll begin the legal process tomorrow." And from that moment on, there would be no turning back. The wedding took place in the city's most luxurious ballroom, a venue so stunning it looked like a dream. But despite the glittering chandeliers and imported white orchids, there was no warmth. It was flawless in detail, cold in spirit. Like everything else Ethan Cole controlled, it was orchestrated with precision. Guests sat in perfect rows: social elites, investors, business allies. None of them knew or cared that the groom was marrying for legacy, not love. Ethan stood at the altar, tall and composed in a tailored black tuxedo. His face was unreadable, calm as if attending a press conference. His hands were clasped, his silver-gray eyes as distant as ever. Then the doors opened. Maya walked in. She looked breathtaking, draped in a silk white gown that caressed her figure, her white skin glowing under the soft lights. Her dark eyes shimmered with a quiet strength, and hidden within them a trace of fear. Her steps were slow but sure, as if walking into a future she could not escape. Each step echoed with a silent question in her heart. Was this courage or surrender? Ethan looked at her, but his eyes held no emotion, no softness, just quiet calculation. The vows began. Ethan's "I do" came without inflection, like reciting lines from a script. Maya's voice trembled when she replied. Their kiss was brief, mechanical, hollow. That night, the master bedroom, bathed in warm lamplight, felt more like a stage than a sanctuary. Maya stood by the bed, wrapped in a delicate silk nightgown. She said nothing, just watched him approach with unreadable intent. Ethan reached out, brushing her cheek with his hand. His touch was light, his expression unreadable, but when his hand moved lower, Maya flinched. "I've never," she whispered, voice breaking. Ethan froze. His eyes narrowed, confusion flickering through them. "You're he asked, voice low, disbelieving. Maya gave a small nod. Ethan took a step back, as if her words had shattered something inside him. The coldness he wore like armor suddenly felt too heavy. For the first time, he didn't know what to do. Since that first night, Ethan knew everything had slipped beyond the boundaries of his plan. At first, he approached Maya with a clear purpose, a transaction. But once he realized she had never been with anyone before, something unfamiliar slipped into the cracks of his calculated coldness. And then, after that hesitant, fragile beginning, they didn't stop. They slept together again and again. Ethan once believed that physical closeness would simplify things. Instead, it unraveled him. He became addicted to touching her, the softness of her skin, the way her breath caught, the way she whispered his name in the dark. But what kept him awake at night wasn't lust. It was the look in her eyes after everything. Gentle, quiet, expecting nothing. Maya never asked if he loved her, never demanded anything, but her silence unsettled him more than any confrontation could. He began noticing the smallest things. The way she tied her hair when she sketched, how she curled up with a book in the early morning light, the soft smile she gave when eating her favorite dessert. He knew her habits, without realizing he had memorized them. He began showing up more in her space, not as the distant man he used to be. He sat beside her while she drew, rested his hand on her stomach after long nights, whispering, "Are you okay?" Maya didn't say much, but she felt him changing. Physical intimacy had opened the door, but it was the quietness between them that made Ethan realize, for the first time in his life, he might be feeling something real, beyond control, beyond reason. Maya had been feeling strange, waves of dizziness, nausea, and constant fatigue. One morning, while washing her face, she grew so faint she had to cling to the sink to stay upright. Ethan found her slumped on the bathroom floor, her face pale. Without hesitation, he carried her straight to the hospital. When the doctor said, "She's pregnant," about 6 weeks along, Ethan was speechless. He sat silently in the car afterward, his hands clenched, heart pounding. The baby was no longer an idea in a contract. It was real, alive, growing inside the woman he was slowly falling for. From that moment on, Ethan changed. He hired a private nutritionist and doctor, forbade Maya from doing anything strenuous. He monitored every meal, every supplement. When Maya complained about swollen feet, he knelt beside the bed, gently massaging each toe, his fingers awkward at first, as if he feared doing it wrong. But with every touch, he grew gentler. Every morning, he woke before her just to watch her sleep. His gaze softened when he saw her resting a hand over her stomach, instinctively protecting the life growing within her. Ethan, the man who once believed emotions were a burden, now panicked at the sound of her cough. And in that quiet shift, he realized he was no longer the man he used to be. One afternoon, Maya passed by Ethan's private study in the mansion. The door was slightly ajar. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but then his cold voice carried through the gap. "Once the baby is born, the contract ends. Prepare the settlement papers as agreed." Maya froze in place. Her body locked, heart pounding wildly. The words sliced through her like a blade. Was it all just business? She thought of the times he gently placed a hand on her belly, the nights he whispered, "You need rest," for the baby. She thought, it was real. Tears stung her eyes. She clutched her stomach, suddenly feeling like the child inside her could feel her breaking too. When the door opened, Ethan stopped short at the sight of her, standing there, pale, eyes rimmed red. "So?" Maya whispered, voice cracking. "It was all just part of the contract?" Her voice wasn't angry. It was broken, like a glass falling quietly off a shelf, shattering without a sound. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. His silence hurt more than any truth. The pain came suddenly, in the middle of the night. Maya clutched her belly, sweat pouring from her skin, her breaths sharp and shallow as the contractions hit. Ethan wasn't there. No one was. She was rushed to the hospital, her body already on the edge of collapse. When Ethan got the call from his assistant, he dropped everything and raced to the hospital, his face pale with panic. He nearly knocked over a nurse trying to reach the delivery room. "Where is she?" he barked, his voice thick with fear. The doors opened, and in the soft glow of the delivery room, he saw Maya, drenched in sweat, eyes half closed, but still lit with a faint glimmer as she looked toward the newborn in the nurse's arms. A fragile cry filled the air. Ethan stepped forward, his hands trembling as the nurse handed him the baby. His eyes burned. His large hands awkwardly cradled the tiny life now in his arms. "Oh God," he whispered, "you're perfect." Then he turned to Maya. She looked up at him, tears slipping silently down her temple. He took her hand, pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I don't deserve this, but I'm here, and I'm not leaving." 1 month after the birth of their son, Ethan hosted a formal evening gala at the Cole estate, a celebration to officially introduce his heir to New York's elite. The ballroom looked like a scene from a dream. Vaulted ceilings, soft golden light pouring from grand crystal chandeliers, white roses lining the marble aisles, and the delicate hum of classical music weaving through the air. Maya stood quietly at the edge of the room, wearing a flowing pearl silk gown, her long hair cascading over one shoulder. From across the room, she watched Ethan holding their son, his arms steady, his gaze surprisingly warm. He looked nothing like the man she had first met. Then their eyes met. Ethan smiled, a real, honest smile. Maya's heart caught in her chest. He began to walk toward her, moving through the crowd with quiet purpose. Without a word, he reached for her hand and gently guided her to the center stage. All eyes turned toward them. Holding their baby in one arm and Maya's hand in the other, Ethan began to speak. "Thank you all for being here tonight. This event was meant to be the official introduction of the Cole heir, but for me, it's something far more important. He glanced at Maya. I have a confession. My marriage to Maya didn't begin with love. It began with a contract. Whispers rippled through the room. Maya held her breath. Ethan didn't look away. But what I feel for her now was never part of the deal. He handed the baby to his assistant, then turned fully to face Maya. And to the shock of everyone watching, Ethan dropped to one knee. He pulled out a small velvet box from his jacket. Inside was a diamond ring. Simple, stunning, glowing under the soft lights. Maya Bennett, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You're the first person who ever made me feel like I had a heart. You changed me. You taught me how to love, how to care, how to be a father, and most of all, you made me want to be a better man. He looked up, eyes glistening. Marry me, this time, not for a contract, but for love, for family, for us. Tears streamed down Maya's cheeks. In the hush of the ballroom, she nodded. Yes, she whispered, before falling into his arms as he rose to embrace her tightly. And in that moment, they were no longer bound by paper. They were bound by love. Late at night, the mansion was wrapped in silence. In the nursery, a soft glow cast a warm stillness over everything. Ethan sat in a rocking chair, cradling their sleeping baby in his arms. Maya stood by the doorway, quietly watching the scene. She walked over and gently sat on his lap. Ethan wrapped his arms around both her and the baby, holding them close to his chest. You're not just the mother of my child, Ethan whispered. You're my entire life. Maya smiled, her eyes misty with tears. And you're mine, forever. The three of them sat quietly, embraced beneath the golden light, and for the first time, Maya knew without a doubt, they were no longer just two people bound by circumstance. They were a family, one born not of paper, but of love.